Well, I'd like to welcome you all here this evening, especially Parish Councillor Paul Mahoney, uh, Andrew, Councillor Andrew McCormick, who is here for the first time, and the rest of us are the committee members. Right, perhaps we can begin now. First, I have to do the fire evacuation procedures for this evening meetings. There are no fire alarms scheduled for this evening. Therefore, if the fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the building immediately. The fire exit is located at the side of this room. Exit through the reception and meet in the War Memorial Park. This meeting is being webcast live on the internet and will be available to view on YouTube after the meeting. Please switch your phones off or turn to silent. Well, apologies for absence and substitution. I have been notified that Camilla Proctor and Parish Councillor Linda Agnew has sent their apologies. Are there any other apologies for absence or substitution? No. Declaration of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? No. Urgent matters. Are there? No. No urgent matters had been notified to me. The minutes of the meeting held on 11th of July 2022. I hope everybody has read it. Are the committee happy that the minutes of the meeting held on 11th of July 2022 are an accurate record? Is agreed? Thank you. Now we come to the item 5, which is a complaint reports. Over to Fiona.
Thank you, Chair. This is the routine report we provide to committee each time. It's a very short report, which is quite a positive thing, because you'll see in paragraph 3.1 that we've only had one new complaint since the last meeting in July 2022, and that was on the 27th of September last year. There are no undetermined complaints and no new complaints have been received since that time, so although short, I would consider it quite positive that we haven't had many complaints.
Any questions? Yes, Councillor Slimming.
Thank you. Well, I suppose this is to be welcomed, that we haven't had any. The fact we've adopted the new code of conduct might make things a bit clearer, maybe. And I'm hoping that the parishes are all, I know later in the report you've actually been, some of the parishes, only about half of them have actually adopted the new code. So I'm surprised, pleasantly surprised, that the parishes are also perhaps not coming forward with so many. But maybe if we do a bit more training, there might come some more, who knows. But I think we must welcome this. And I don't know, if we can put any reason, are other places having similar experience that the numbers are dropping, or are we unusual?
I don't think I can answer that. I'm not sure. I think it's, I wouldn't say it's stopped. I think it could just it's just been a lull, I think, and we'll probably pick up at some point, but it's to be welcomed. I don't know about other places, to be honest. I think,
but it is a very welcome that the way that we have got adherence to our code of conduct. Yes, Councillor McCormick.
Bit of a mischievous question, I guess. Are we allowed to know which parish?
I can't tell you off the top of my head, but I can provide you with that information. It shouldn't be really in the public domain, I don't think, so I can provide you with it outside of the meeting.
Are there any other comments or questions? Yes, Ms. Marikane?
Yeah, just as a question, we've obviously got elections coming up. Is that likely from previous history to set off a spurt of complaints?
Yeah. Sorry, can you?
Oh,
So in the couple of years, 2 or 3 years I've been here, it does. So usually May, June, we do get things do pick up a little bit, but so we'll see.
Any other comments? Oh, no. So we note the progress made on complaints received and the learning derived from the consideration of complaints. Is that agreed? Yeah? Agreed. Lovely. Now we have item 6, which is a recruitment of independent persons and independent standards assessors. So again, over to Fiona to introduce this.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's come to that time again when we need to commence a recruitment process for both independent persons and independent standards assessors. It is a bit complicated, so the council approved 3 independent persons and 4 independent standards assessors, and these are for terms of 2 years plus an extension of 2 years. We currently have 2 independent persons after one resigned last month, and the term of one of the independent persons expires at the end of the year. So we need the remaining independent person their term can be extended for 2 years from October. So there will, in effect, be by the end of the year 2 vacancies for independent persons. In terms of independent standards assessors, we currently have 3, as we were unable to recruit a 4th on the last occasion. 2 of the 3 independent standards assessors, including Verity at the end, her term expires at the end of the year and it can't be extended any further. So we will have 3 vacancies for independent standards assessors again by the end of the year. So I'm seeking the committee's approval to commence the recruitment process. Just for information, the Audit and Accounts Committee has also approved recruiting an independent for that person for that committee. So it is possible we might look at how we recruit the posts, but obviously it will be post-election once we know who will be on the committee, the standards committee at that time, as the interviewers, the interview panel consists of 2 borough councillors and 1 parish town councillor, and myself or the deputy monitoring officer as advisor to the panel. Once the panel has taken these matters through the appointments process, the actual appointment has to be referred to council for approval. So it's really kicking off the process and seeking your approval to commence it. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Slimming.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's important to note that we should select a chair from the independent person. Yes, not the we get very confusing because we've called them similar names. Apologies. So it's important that we do have people who are prepared to take on the chair, as well as obviously do all the assessments. I did think whether we should perhaps reduce the numbers, but I think we've got a little bit of give and take with people leaving and whatever. Otherwise, I think it's important we try and recruit as many as possible. I know that we've got vacancies, and I know it's quite difficult, again, to recruit independent people. I suspect we're not the only council doing it, because I think last time we had people from quite a distance away, and we agreed that we would pay travel costs for somebody to come. So obviously, if we've spread our net wisely, I think the process that we had last time, which I was involved with, was very fair and fine, and I think we managed to recruit some people that obviously have stayed with us, so that's good. So I would suggest that we continue with the same process as last time and continue with it as it is, and that's my personal view.
Yeah, thank you. Parish Councillor Slatford.
I'd just like to query the publicity adverts in the local newspaper and on the website feels to me a bit restricted. And if we're looking to recruit, are we allowed to use other media?
Fiona?
Yes, absolutely. So we have to do it in the local newspaper because the law says we have to, but we will use any means. If there are other ways of getting the news out, I'm quite willing to do it. So if you've got any ideas where I can advertise anywhere else, that would be helpful. But we try. We've done some recruitment for other independent sort of panels, which haven't been very successful. So we have used sort of partnerships that we know as well to try and get the best people. But if anybody has any suggestions, very grateful to receive them.
Yeah. Councillor, Parish Councillor Slatford.
I was just going to suggest that the NALC may be a medium in that they are now showing recruitment across the sector.
Yes, noted. Yes.
Thank you. Last time I'm pretty sure we had somebody from Yorkshire.
Yeah.
And somebody we actually recruited from Cambridgeshire or Norfolk. So we obviously did do some wider advertising last time. So we did actually get some applicants from other places. But yeah, you're right. National Association of Local Councils. Obviously the LGA presumably have a means of advertising as well. So yeah, as wide as possible to get hold of people that might be aware of what we're doing. I mean, there is a payment. It's not a great deal, but if we're prepared to pay some travel expenses, and we did an awful lot on Zoom anyway. In some instances, we don't make decisions, but obviously some of it can be done that way. So it might allow people, and they can put it on their CV, which they were quite happy to do because I think some of them became a bit professional. People on standards committee across the country. That was my feeling, that there were quite a lot of people who were looking for, putting more tick boxes. So I think there could be people out there, but it all depends what the state is at the moment.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I do remember that, and I do think that we have to really recruit from elsewhere. Councillor Basham.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a couple of questions on, one was on the allowances actually. Independent persons, members allowance £2,034, independent standards assessors who come to these meetings, correct? £678. Is that, I'm not proposing that we change it here and now, but is that right?
Fiona.
So the member allowances scheme was reviewed at the last council meeting. So we had to appoint an independent remuneration panel to look at them all, and those were the sums that they came back with. I think because the independent person is a statutory appointment and there's also a dual role, that if there was looking at disciplinary or dismissal of any of the statutory officers, then that person takes that role as well. So I think that accounts for the higher rate.
Thank you, Fiona.
Councillor Wesson. Yeah.
One other further, just not a question, just an observation. Page 25, independent person eligibility criteria. We say they cannot be a councillor, co-opted member, etc. I think the second bullet point should be the third bullet point. Relative or close friend of either of the above. I think they're just in the wrong order.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. Fiona. Yeah. Any other question? Yeah. Ms. Marican.
Hi, a couple of comments. Firstly, if there's anything I can do to help with the recruitment process, including, for example, giving an insight into whether I've enjoyed it, which I've got to say I have. And also, there are other I'm sort of obviously involved in quite a few networks across the border in Berkshire, and there are various sort of community newsletters and things, and it might be worth tapping into some of those, because you get some quite civic-minded people on those. And then so the issue of payment, I mean, I don't do it for the payment. I mean, I've got to say I found it fascinating and enjoyable and worthwhile. And I think that's probably the reason that people will be interested in doing it. The little bit of money is just a little extra.
Thank you. Any further questions? Yes, Councillor Slimming.
Perhaps we could get a little YouTube video that we could promote on social media of how great it is to be one. I mean, any way that we can get people interested. You never know, you know, they might just trigger a few interest. If you want to be a media star, then.
Right. Are there any other comments from the committee? No. No. Yes, Paul. Councillor Basham.
So, sorry if you're about to ask this next, but are we putting names forward for the panel tonight, or how's that happening?
Over to you, Fiona, on that.
I think because it's going to take place post-election, then there'll be the appointments made to the committees after the election at the annual general meeting. So it'll depend who's on the committee at that point. So, but if you are and you're volunteering, that would be great.
Yes.
I should just flag up, I'm taking part in the panel for the audit committee appointment. So if that helps or hinders, I'll leave it to you.
Well, we already got a member. Yeah. And hopefully that I'm not asking for volunteer at this meeting, but maybe after the election, because we have to make sure that we are all here, and so that we can choose members. And as we know that the Constitution says that we have to have 2 borough councillors and 1 parish councillor, and then the monitoring officers are going to be there for advice. They only do advising us. So we'll be looking for members at that time, or for the panel. Right. Okay, so now to approve the recruitment of 2 independent persons and 3 independent standard assessors in accordance with the process outlined in Appendix 1. Secondly, to interview panel consist of 2 borough councillors and 1 parish or town councillor, and the monitoring or deputy monitoring officer to be present as advisor to the panel. The standard committee agrees that the interview panel recommend to council the appointment of up to 2 independent persons and up to 3 independent standard officers. Is that a great committee? Great. It's good. Now we come to annual draft annual report. Over to you, Fiona.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we present a annual report to Council in July of this year for noting, reporting on the work of the committee over the last year. It has been a light year, as the heavy lifting, I think, with the code of conduct and social media guidance, etc., was done in the previous year. So it is a light report. I'm just seeking, I noticed a spelling error under no code of conduct. I'll change that. So if there's anything else anybody thinks we can include in that, or if there's any amendments you wish me to make, I should just point out, I suppose, that in terms of looking over the complaints over the last year, there have only been 3 complaints, which, again, is very positive as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it's been quite a quiet year on the standards front.
Yeah. Councillor Slimming.
Thank you, Chair. In the first part of the paragraph, which is from the Chair, I know, you still mentioned town council. I was the town council representative, but obviously at the current moment we haven't got town council representatives because I became the borough council representative. So I swapped hats and became the borough. I wonder if we ought to put the names of the independent persons in the list of people at the bottom, because we haven't mentioned them in this report, but they exist and they've got current ones, just to make it clear. And then I've got a question that I couldn't really ask anywhere else. Obviously, we talked about the adoption of the Code of Conduct, and only half the parish councillors and town councillors have adopted it. I wonder if there's been any reasons why the other half haven't.
Fiona?
I haven't received any. It might be that Councillor Mahoney or Councillor Slatford can come back on that. I was actually quite glad to see that over half, because when I looked on the last occasion, that it was significantly less than half of the parish councils had adopted it, and I was quite nicely surprised that over half now have adopted it. I think Councillor Mahoney and I were going to do a push again, weren't we? Which is timetables slipped a little, but we need to do that.
Come back and just say that the reason why it's great that we all have the same one is that when we come to have any complaints, at least we know that everybody has adopted the same thing. I know that before I became a borough councillor, I was a town council parish rep. We did have some councils who had adopted a code of conduct, which meant that we couldn't actually take what action we might have done if they'd adopted the then code with the new one. So I think it's important that all the towns and parishes do actually adopt them. My own town council, with my town council hat, adopted it before the borough did. So I think we should be pushing very hard, and I hope you can help to do that.
Parish Councillor Paul Mahoney.
Yes, so Fiona and I did speak at length actually following the last Basingstoke District Association meeting where we had representation from the parish and town councils there. It was our original idea to pull together a workshop, sort of a full day sort of training session for the clerks, to wrap our hands and arms around the clerks, to give them a little bit of TLC, because a lot of them feel that they're isolated in the role that they do. Gut feel is that I'm afraid, you know, a lot of the communications that are sent out are that it is down to the clerks in the parishes whether they forward that on to the rest of the team. So I think one of the things we did discuss as well was to ensure that when we do when you do send out communications about things like this, you should be also addressing it to the chair as opposed to just the clerks only, so that there's some sort of visibility. Due to personal circumstances, I've not been able to progress that sort of training day with the clerks, but once the elections are out of the way, we could just move it into June to make it a little bit of a it would probably be quite good actually, because then we would have a lot of new councillors potentially, and we'll be able to you'll be able to produce some support for the new training and stuff like that. So there's quite a lot we can do. I've also got support from HALC to actually come down and support that day as well. I've spoken to Alison Zarecki in the sustainability section. She was, you know, desperate to come out, and you know, so it could be like quite a good day for a networking event for the clerks, but also a targeted one for us to explain why it would be beneficial to do that, and give them a little bit of training and a bit of TLC. But I'll just reiterate, I think a lot of the communications that are sent out, not just from Basingstoke but just generally, are what's the word I'm looking for, Martin?
Lost in space.
Some of them are just selectively forwarded on, and some of them probably don't appreciate why it's that important, etc. And that might be due to inexperience of the clerks, and that's why we just need to get them all together and share the love, basically. So that's the proposal, and if we can put that on the agenda and try and get it in for June before the summer holidays, that would be quite good.
Thank you, Councillor Mahoney. And Councillor Slatford.
If I could add on this one, that we did offer training as the carrot, and I've heard nothing more about that training. I noticed in the report, which will go out in July, that we're waiting until we see whether we've got any more people signing up. But I think actually where people have signed up to adopt the code of conduct, I think that they should be told that the training will be forthcoming and when that training will be forthcoming. And I think also those who have not signed up, it would, as Paul has said, I think to use the district association to make direct contact with people would be helpful. So I think that those are the points in that direction which I think we ought to be considering. I agree totally with Paul's points about the means of accessing parish and town councils, in that a lot of clerks are very selective on topics they don't understand as to what they forward, because we're actually relying on the clerks to sell the concept to their parishes. And the fact that some other organisation that's run by Basingstoke might have some problems if we don't change our code of conduct is not enough reason for a parish to want to change. I think we need some examples. We need something that is factual, that we can use to encourage people to do so. I think Joe made the point about problems that have been occurred in the past, because if you do have a complaint, well, what were the rules under which that councillor was operating? We don't know. And if you can take it cup half full or cup half empty. If half the councillors are operating to some different rules, it does make things expensive and difficult for this organisation. The basis of that was why free training was being offered. Now, free training certainly immediately after the elections is important, but it will also be a time when the officers are tied up with training the borough councillors. So I think there's an important point there, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your contributions. That's really very good. Now, Councillor Slimming.
I'd just like to add that there might be a selling point for clerks to be more interested, because this current code of conduct covers things that might happen to them. If they've got harassment or bullying concerns, it does protect them, because the councillors obviously have to adhere to code of conduct, means that they're not going to be suffering from that. So it will help them in any employment issues as well. So it isn't just the councillors that are protected, it is also the clerk and the officers, any officers they employ. Similarly, the borough council officers are protected under our code for the borough. So I think it's important to sell that clerks might feel they haven't got anywhere to go, but at least if they've got our current code of conduct adopted, there is some basis in which they can make a complaint and which will be heard.
Yeah, Parish Councillor Paul Mahoney.
Yeah, sorry, is there not a way of having a cascade where you just get all the clerks to join a call and present this to them? I mean, I don't know what this and how it works, but is it not possible to do that if it's urgent? You know, getting everyone on the call, mandatory call. You know, it's at the end of the day, it's very important, and it would be good just to do that.
Fiona.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to come back actually, because my recollection was back in July 2022, we'd put the training for parish councillors slightly on hold because not many of the parish councils had actually adopted the code of conduct, the new code of conduct at that point. Yeah. So now that we've got over half of them, there's a much better number to actually go out and offer the training to. So I'm perfectly happy to do it for clerks as well. We can organise that, and for the parish councillors as well, if you know, can do something either presumably virtual. I don't know if they prefer it in person or virtually, but we can, I presume we'll get more members if we do it, more attendees if it's virtual. But certainly we can look at that this year now.
Yeah. That's very, very good. Are there any other comments? Yes, Councillor Slatford.
I'm sorry to press the point, but this is a report that's going to go out in July, published in July. Surely we've got time between now and July to have actually put in some of the things that we're talking about, such that the report doesn't say we haven't done it.
Yeah.
The report needs to say we have done it, and therefore we should be discussing now what the July report is going to say, because it has achieved, not the situation as at February.
Yeah.
there was another point I wanted to raise, that there's quite a lot of, and I can't remember the exact wording, but within the national associations of parish and town councils, there is a signing up to a standard of behaviour.
Civility.
Sorry?
Civility.
Yes, civility. Now, civility, to my mind, is something that forms exactly within what we see in Code of Conduct. And what I've heard of Code of Conduct has been councillors acting in an uncivil or an unprofessional way. And I feel that probably this report ought to include that national civility campaign to be referenced within it. I don't know what anyone else feels.
Anybody else want to comment on that, or any other matters that we've been talking about? No. So, Fiona, yes, Fiona.
Just on that, the issue that Councillor Slackford just raised, I can make reference to it. I don't know how it's been taken up within the parishes, because that's not really a borough council issue, but I can make reference to it in the text of the report, and I can also amend it to reflect training being offered for the coming year.
Okay. Yeah. No other comments. So I would like you all to join me in reiterating the thanks to former Parish Councillor Les Fryer for his long service on the Standard Committee. I know him as long as we had Standard Committee, and I think Councillor Joe Slimming as well, the same. So I think we would like to add our thanks to his service, long service. And now what we have is to approve, subject to any amendments made by the committee, the annual report for publication in the form appended in Appendix 1. Recommend representation of annual report to council for consideration. Is that agreed? Agreed. Yeah, amended form. Yeah.
We talked about changes to the report. So to say here we are approving the report as presented, that's not factually correct.
Yes, Fiona.
I can send it round the committee before, outside of a formal committee meeting, I can send it round the members just to get your agreement to the final version of it, if that's acceptable.
So the motion is to...
So we have to expect the report really to come back to us for approval. Informally, yes. That's it. Now we go to the review of work program. The committee is asked to note and review the work program. And Fiona, please advise.
Given the discussion just now, I wondered if I add on to the June work programme an update on parish councils and training as well. Oh, actually, we could bring the, I've just noticed we've got a June meeting this year, haven't we? I can bring the
Yes.
the final report to that, sorry. It's usually in July. I'd forgotten it's in June.
Yeah. Are there any comments or suggested addition, Councillor Slimming?
Sorry, I go. And by then we'll have some new borough councillors because there's elections in May, and we might need to review the training. I'm not sure how successful take-up the training was for the borough councillors last year, even although there were a lot of new ones. Some of them attended, but I don't know that all of them did. I think, it's important that borough councillors understand what the Standards Committee does and why they should not do certain things, especially at the moment. I think social media is moving, it's all in the news, I think we're all suddenly thinking, well, you know, should we make sure that our rules are still keeping pace with all the social media changes that are going across the world? But obviously the Local Government Association have produced that, and I know people are supposed to know about it, but I don't know that everybody is and understands what their obligations are. So I would certainly suggest that we need to think about how we make sure that all our borough councillors also attend a session, especially those that are new, and maybe a refresher for the old one. We can't force them because it's not mandatory, of course. Maybe it should be, but...
Yeah, Fiona, is there any...
Sorry, just to say that I've had discussions with the group leaders about a month ago, and recommended that this be made mandatory, the training on code of conduct be made mandatory, so as licensing and planning is. So
Yes, that would be good. Are there... Oh,
I was just going to say, do they not like have an induction plan for new borough councillors, and wouldn't it be good to say that it's mandatory on there as opposed to not?
So yes, it will be this year. It hasn't previously been mandatory. There's only been 2 mandatory course training sessions, so it will going forward.
Yes, any further comments or questions?
Sorry, yes. Well, Martin's just come up with that, but so I'm not going to take the credit for it. But why don't we have something similar in the parishes for new councillors? There's like an induction, you know, Basingstoke. Here's the suggested induction for a new councillor, and have it listed in one of those in the document, and as part of the overall training and stuff. So I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it could be done at Halk because it's more of a localised thing here. Halk is more of is all to do with Hampshire, so we can do, but it's more localised, isn't it, in Basingstoke? Thank you.
Is it something that we can really undertake?
Just thinking more suggested. You know, here's to help. You know, the clerks are crying out for support, aren't they? Here's something. Here's an idiot's guide. Not an idiot's guide, well, you know, a basic, you know, a how-to. This is what you need to do for your new councillors, X, Y, Z, and you know, it becomes the responsibility of the councillors then to actually to move it forward, and it can be documented in the minutes and all that type of stuff.
Thank you.
So just trying to, so in relation to code of conduct, presumably not every. Include, yes. If it's wider than that, I think we need to have further discussions, really, because it won't be within my remit necessarily. So, but let's take it offline if you like, and we'll have a look at it.
Yeah. Yes. Any other comments? No. Questions? No.
Can we put then in November that we review progress? Because you can put that in there, and we won't forget that we need to review the progress of how many people took the training and whether we think there's any learning, so that we don't lose sight of it. And obviously, yeah, come March next year, another year on. But yeah, it's ongoing, really, isn't it? Thank you.
Yes, we can. Yeah. Now there is no item for excluding the press or public, whom we haven't got. Then. 10 is we haven't got any exempt items for information or confidential item for information. So I think I would call the meeting closed.